I'm Mary Beth Sewald, President and CEO of the Vegas Chamber. This week, the Vegas Chamber is doing our annual Washington, D.C. fly-in. It's virtual this year. It's D.C. in LV. And we want to share the very latest information from our conversations about the latest on Capitol Hill. I'm so pleased to have with us today Ashlee Stephenson. She's the Vice President and National Political Director for the U.S. Chamber. Ashlee, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Mary Beth. I appreciate it very much.
We just did a very popular segment with you, a Zoom interview. You spoke with Vegas Chamber today, and I wanted to highlight some of the biggest points that you made. You had a great PowerPoint and so forth. So what would you say is the political landscape in your view, and what does that mean for our business community here in Nevada?
Sure. So voters are really focused on the issues of healthcare and economics. From a business community perspective, there's always a lot going on when pocketbook issues are bubbling to the surface of concerns. And of course, right now, we know because of the coronavirus pandemic, the business community and workers really want to know when we can get back to normal and how long is it going to take until we get back on an upswing and confidence is returned.
Okay. And then what would you say are some of the issues that are driving the presidential race, and how are those issues polling?
So right now, the top concerns are all about healthcare and the economy. At the start of the year, it was really different. Voters were concerned about a number of different issues, but in light of the coronavirus pandemic, that's completely changed the conversation at the national level. This is a campaign that's all going to come down to who voters view is better equipped to handle jobs in the economy and then healthcare.
One of your slides was really fascinating. You talked about motivations to vote, voter enthusiasm versus fear, right? And how, for example, in Vice President Biden's case, you said that folks were less enthusiastic about voting for him than they were more fearful of the alternative, which would be re-electing President Trump. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. What's very normal in an election race, a re-election race when there is an incumbent, is it's very, very normal that sometimes a referendum on that incumbent. And we're really seeing that play out this year in 2020. Those who are supporting President Trump are doing so because they're very excited about his candidacy. His base has stuck with him through the last 4 years. In reverse, a high percentage of those who are supporting Vice President Biden are doing so because they would like to see President Trump lose at the end of the day. So this is all about the president and driving voters to go in one bucket or the other. It is true that there's slightly more just pure motivation among President Trump's voters to vote for him versus those for Biden. And we consistently see that in the survey research.
And you talked about a certain segment of voters that are the quote up for grabs voters. How would you say that's going to affect this election coming up?
So it's always the up for grabs, or the swing voters, as we call them, that decide elections at the end of the day. These are men and women who tend to not pay attention to politics day in and day out. They make their decision toward the end of the election cycle. And what's really unique in 2020 is the growth of absentee early voting, vote by mail ability. So many of these men and women who are your traditional swing voters that don't cast a ballot on election day may already be participating in a lot of the states that are allowing ballots to be returned now.
All right. Well, Ashlee, you have just been a tremendous asset to the Vegas Chamber. We so appreciate our partnership with the U.S. Chamber, and we just really thank you for your expertise, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, sounds good. Do follow the Vegas Chamber on social media at LV Chamber, #DC in LV for all the latest details of the Vegas Chamber's fly-in. I'm Mary Beth Sewald.